What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's webinar. Tom is waving, Kendall's waving, two thumbs up. We're ready to get started and have some fun today. Tom, did you have one of your little cortados this morning to get you going off to a good start?
I'm not a Christian until I have my cortado in the morning.
That's what I knew about you. That's why I was. Okay, good. Kendall, what about you? Did you get your 5 mile run in today?
No, definitely not. If I do a 5 mile run, that's not part of my day.
Somebody's
Ever.
chasing you.
Yes, there's
Kendall did do a tough mudder on the weekend.
Let's
I
go.
convinced him to do a tough mudder, and the problem was that we had to get over a wall, and he had to climb on my shoulders. So my shoulders are sore.
Still bruises on Tom's shoulders.
I love that, man. Yeah, somebody convinced me to do a tough mudder one time, and I will never do that again. I love it. Hey, welcome everybody. My name is Louie. If this is one of your first times interacting with Irresistible Church Network, I want to say welcome. Thank you for being here. What we are is we're a network of a little over 200 churches that are partnering together around the world. And we're all churches that are innovating and collaborating around this idea of how do we design our churches to engage unchurched people and inspire them to follow Jesus. And so every now and then we jump on a webinar like this and share some ideas of what's going on around the network, talk to some partner churches like Tom and Kendal, who are at EHills Church in Aurora, Colorado, right outside of Denver. And so they're our guests of honor today. They're the real brains of the operation. I just ask the questions, they answer them. That's how it's gonna work today. So just to kind of bring you a little bit up to speed on what we've been doing, we're actually kind of in a webinar series. Over the last few months, we've been hitting some different topics, and all these topics have been around our 7 ICN network distinctives. So yeah, there's a slide on the screen there. You can check that out. Those are outward facing, healthy leadership, strategically organized for our community, irresistible environments, prioritizing the next generation, and relational discipleship. So like a couple of months ago, we talked about relational discipleship. Last month, we talked about irresistible environments. And then today, we're kind of zeroing in on that one in the bottom left-hand corner of for our community. And we're going to be paying attention to that today and hearing specifically some real world ways that Tom and Kendal and their team there at EHills have been for their city there in Aurora. So we're going to unpack that a little bit in just a second, but just to set the expectation for you guys, this is not anything fancy. This is just meant to be a real world, honest, practical conversation. Hey, here's what we're trying. Here's what works. Here's what didn't work. If we could do it all over again, we'd do it that way. So we're not trying to pretend anything today. We're just kind of having a conversation about real life, real ministry, what's working and what's not. So kind of the format for today is Tom and Kendal and I will just have a conversation for the first 30 minutes or so. And then while we're having a conversation, you guys be thinking of the questions that you have in your mind and go ahead and throw those questions into the chat. Our team will get those and we'll save those up for a Q&A at the end where your questions will be presented to Tom and Kendal, and they can have at those as best they can, and try to give you some practical advice when it comes to being for your community. Sound like a fun time today? Tom, are you ready? Kendal, you ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, these guys are raring to go. So with that said, why don't we just do this? Tom and Kendal, for those on here that don't know you guys yet, why don't each of you just give us a quick snapshot of yourself, of EHills Church, and maybe something you love most about your church or your city?
Yeah. I'll go first. I am the reach out pastor here at EHills. I've been here for 24 years. I've done a bunch of different roles. Started out as a high school youth pastor, operations, communications, different things. And I've been in this role for about 8 years now. So yeah, I have a wife, 4 kids, and love Eastern EHills, love Aurora, where we are. And I think probably one of the things I love the most about EHills is we're really real around here, and that's one of our values. And so, man, we have a lot of fun together. But we definitely nothing's kind of hidden. We put it all out there, and we're really real.
Why do you think we invited you on here, Kendal? That's what we want. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
All right, Tom.
We're trying to get the glare off Kendall's head there, but it just wasn't working. There we go, Kendall. It's your halo. So I'm Tom. I, unlike Kendall, have not been around for 24 years. I'm kind of the new kid on the block. So I've been in the lead pastor role here for almost coming up on 2 years now. As you can hear from my accent, I am not from America, not from Colorado. I'm actually originally from South Africa. And so I was leading a church there, a part of a church there, 16 years, kind of cut my teeth in ministry there. Started as the video guy, to be honest, because I had a Mac back in like 2005.
That was your
major qualification of being in the media department. Had iMovie, but kind of was involved in a bunch of different things. Launched the campus and then took over we have a multi-campus church, so took over our 4 campuses back in 2018. But God had different plans. And long story short, called our family over here, and actually through the ICN network, kind of landed up here at EHills Church. And we love it. We love Colorado. We love America. There's lots of things we're still figuring out and trying to learn and just kind of listen and learn. I've got 2 boys. They are naughty and crazy. I can tell stories about that if we have time later. But so they've adapted well. My wife's also on staff. She's a preacher, communicator. And so, we love it. And we feel like we said to God, we'll go anywhere you send us. But it feels like kind of a bonus that we ended up in Colorado. We love the mountains. And EHills, I think I just resonate with what Kendall said. What I love most, what drew me here to EHills was really just, this is a church for the unchurched. And I think we are passionate about doing whatever it is we can to reach the unchurched, the lost. And, this area is highly unchurched. And so that's what kind of, if you cut me, that's what I'm going to bleed is, how do we reach people who don't yet know Jesus? So, yeah.
I love that. That's awesome, my friend. Thank you. Thank you for that. So, as you guys know, as I just talked about, one of our ICN distinctives is being for our community. So, why is that idea so important for your church and for your city?
Again, I think so. Just the stats again, like I said, Aurora is one of the most unchurched cities in the whole United States, which is kind of crazy. 85% unchurched, and I have found that there is a high level of, like I would say, institutional distrust. I think people are wary of, the man, whether it's corporate structures, government structures, or the church.
Chain and so restaurants.
Yeah, exactly. There's kind of a wariness of that, a suspicion, and I get it. For good reason in some ways, but there's also, along with that high level of institutional distrust, I've found very high levels of spiritual curiosity and spiritual hunger, and so it feels like we're living in this community where people are not necessarily antagonistic to the church, but they're like waiting for someone to invite them, and when we do that or when we serve them, it's like they're taken aback. And so for me, I think, at North Point, talk about, how do we endear ourselves to the community? And I think that's always a question we're asking. Like, if we had to disappear tomorrow, if this building ceased to exist, would people miss us? Like, not just the people who come on Sundays, but like, would our community miss us? Or would they say, hey, we didn't necessarily believe what they believed, but we're really sad they're gone because, man, those people were making a huge difference in our city. And I think that goodwill pays huge dividends in church growth, in programs, but that's not the reason we do it, but that's just the natural kind of byproduct. And so, that's what that would, I don't know, and Kendall, if you want to add to that.
Well, I think the other piece of Aurora is that we're right next to Denver, but we're kind of like the black sheep of the metro area. People don't even like to tell other people that they're from Aurora, but we're proud of our city.
They're eating the dogs here. That was that got out.
We've gotten some bad press recently, but we're proud of our city and we love being here, and this is where God's put us. And so our take is, how can we take over this community for Jesus and love our community really well. So
yeah, I love that.
So we say we're for real, as Kendall said, we're for Aurora, and we're for better, because our vision statement is Jesus, inviting everyone to experience that Jesus makes life better. But so the catchphrase is for real, for better, for Aurora and for better. And that in some ways, like our for Aurora has almost become more well known than EHills Church. Like people in our community know FOR Aurora, but they might not necessarily know EHills, and they come to discover that this is like an initiative of EHills. And the only thing I will say that I'll add to that is that this is not a branding thing, and this is not like a program thing. This is like a culture. Like we want to be known as the good news people of our city in practical ways. And like, again, that question, what if the loudest thing the city knew about us was what we're for, not what we're against, which unfortunately is so often what people are known for. And like Kendal said, we're proud of our city, and we're praying bold prayers, like Joshua 6, give us the city, Lord, and that's kind of our heart, not just to plant campuses or have church services, but to like saturate the city of Aurora with the gospel,
I love that. Yeah. So with that in mind, I love how you point out this is not just a program, because the
Yeah.
second we're going to talk about your FOR Aurora campaign or program or however you guys call it, but it's really so much more than a program or a campaign. It's a culture where you guys are embodying, um, you know, Jesus and being the hands and feet of Jesus to your community. So with that in mind, can you guys tell us just the story of how FOR Aurora started? And what problem or opportunity were you guys trying to solve in your community when you did that?
Yeah, really back in 2018 was, this popular thing in churches all over the country was they were doing like large scale service weeks, and so I was kind of watching all these other churches do this, and I thought, hey, that'd be great to do for EHills. Let's put a whole bunch of volunteers out into our community in a single week, and just see kind of what kind of difference we can make, and see if we can move the needle on some things and that sort of thing. And literally, we were trying to think of what we call this week, and we'd been talking about FOR Aurora and that sort of thing. And so we just decided, let's call it the FOR Aurora Service Week. And so in 2018, we did that for the very first time, had about 750, 800 people out in our community that week. And,
Okay.
you know, and then from there, we kind of like, it started to gain momentum. So we rolled all of our partner ministries, all of our outreach stuff, including like international stuff, kind of under that banner of FOR Aurora. And then, through that, just started really trying to see what are the needs in our community, and as we were finding out those needs, then trying to move into those places, and then take out the places where we weren't being very helpful. You kind of started and you're like, we need lots of volunteer spots. We started doing kind of everything, and it was like, well, that's maybe not such a need in our area here. This is more of a need. So then, and then it's just kind of over time morphed into what it is today, and it's constantly being based on finding out what those needs are around us.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Kendal. I mean, this was way before my time, but you were also kind of then starting to realize who in the city is already doing good work. And
Yes.
instead of kind of reinventing the wheel, how do we partner with those organizations and, fan into flame what they're doing, or send them volunteers, or, even just whatever, support them with resources, whatever it is, because we can't solve every problem. But usually, as you begin to kind of look around, you start to see that, wait a minute, there are people on the ground here who understand the nuances of this particular social problem.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people talk about that idea of partner, don't pioneer, and that speaks right into
That's
it.
good.
And the places we had to pioneer we're in a rather affluent area here. And so like there's not a food bank within miles of where we are. But what we found out is, as inflation happened and everything else, like people are house poor in our area, and some of them need help with their groceries. So our food bank has become a big thing. And like 75% of the people are coming from within 5 mile radius of our church, which is crazy, because it's, like I said, it's a somewhat affluent area, and people wouldn't think that that's a need here. But then as we dug in deeper, you kind of find out that is something. So we did pioneer that, because there was nobody doing that right here in our community.
Okay.
And for me, I mean, coming from South Africa, poverty looks different, obviously, and like levels of poverty are different. But so I was kind of taken aback. Like, what do you mean there's poverty here? But there really is. Like, there's food insecurity. There are kids who go to school with food insecurity every day, right next door to us here. And so there are needs. When you get out there, you find them.
Yeah, I love that. So you mentioned the serve day, the food pantry, things like that. Were there any other first practical steps that you guys kind of took to launch this thing? And how did you bring your church and your people and your congregation
Yeah.
along for the ride?
Yeah, that first couple years around that service week, we preached a sermon series, like a 3-part sermon series, 2 weeks leading up to the week, then the week of, and then we did a celebration at the end of that. So it was, we made T-shirts, and if you signed up to serve, you got a T-shirt out in the lobby, right? You showed us that you had signed up during the service, and we gave you a T-shirt on the spot, and just different things like that. That kind of helped get everybody on board and really find, start to get people excited about being a part of this in our neighborhoods.
That makes
And I
sense.
think,
It wasn't just some small thing in the background. This was the whole church was focused on this. Yeah.
Yeah, you talk about preaching the announcements. We were like, this is what we're doing. We need you to be a part.
And I think, I mean, if you fast forward now to 2025, we have those things. It stopped becoming a once a year kind of week thing and started becoming like regular. And I think COVID accelerated that because, for example, we have a thing called Marketplace now, which is the first and third Thursday of every month, where we serve. Now that started kind of in COVID. We're just trying to help people who are in need. And then that just grew. And now, I mean, Kendal, tell me the numbers on that now. I mean, it's pretty crazy what we do.
It's about 275 boxes of food. And then we also do a hot meal along with that. So then right now we're 950 to 1,000 hot meals that go out of the kitchen that day too.
And people line up around the building for, I mean, it's pretty wild. And then we do Christmas. We've got a Christmas store where we provide like a dignified shopping experience for parents who can't afford to buy gifts. And we actually charge. We've got kind of a bit of flack for that. Like, why are you charging for, donated gifts? But the reality is it gives people a sense of like, hey, I'm paying, it's only $10, but I'm paying $10 to get this, $100 bicycle. But it means that parent can then go home and say to my kid, hey, I bought you this gift. So we got Christmas store. What else we got, Kendal?
Well, first of all, it's only $5, Tom. So make sure we're not catching any flack, like
I will tell you a story though. What happened was Sonia, Kendal's wife, bought him a really nice helmet for skiing, and it arrived at the church in the Amazon box, but the volunteers thought it was a helmet for the Christmas store. And so there's some kid riding around on a bicycle in Aurora with a really nice snowboard helmet.
I love that.
She didn't want me to see it, so she had it delivered to the church. Well, it was right in the middle of Christmas store when we have, hundreds of packages a day coming into the church, and yeah, they just thought it was a bike helmet. And so some kid sweating like crazy riding around on his bike with a ginormous helmet on his head.
Amazing.
Yeah,
everybody's jealous. Everybody in his cul-de-sac is very jealous.
Right. But we do a Thanksgiving food drive, where we put together food boxes and really kind of changed that. We used to do a typical Thanksgiving meal, and then it was like, hey, culturally, like most of the people in our area don't know what to do with this. So we've morphed all that kind of stuff. We do a backpacks on the weekends where we send food home with kids who normally get fed at school, and sometimes food insecurity over the weekends is a big deal. And and then we're kind of just like trying to figure out. We always tell people, you call us and we'll see if we can help. And so we've done, most recently we had a high school that reached out to us, and this was crazy. In their area, the girls swim coach called us and said, I have girls that want to go out for swimming, but can't afford swimsuits and goggles. And so we said, send us an Amazon list. We ordered all this stuff, went directly to school. And she's like, I have like 8 new girls on the swim team that couldn't have been apart because they couldn't literally afford the swimsuit and the goggles, so.
Wow. Yeah, that's something that would have never come up in the brainstorm whiteboard session.
No, exactly.
I got an idea.
Yeah, I think the key there is that the key there is that we've been serving those schools for a long time. So I think we're in 22 schools now. We have a food truck, so we go around. These guys are taking, burritos to the teachers just to say thank you for what you do. And so there's this currency that this trust is the currency, I would say, of this entire thing. Like, you're just building trust all the time. And then over time, what happens is we then become the people they call when a need arises. One of the high schools down the road had a tragic event where 2 of their high school kids were killed on a motorbike accident. And, we arrived and just were there to support the teachers and feed the teachers. And that relationship, the fact that they're seeing that, and now we're getting, messages from the teachers saying, wow, we can't believe it. We felt so cared for. Love. Of course, if they're looking for a church, they're going to come to EHills because we've built that relational currency.
I love that. All right, so you just talked about building trust with your like nonprofit partners. How has trust been built with just the people in your city? Because earlier you talked about people in your city are a little leery of organized religion or hostile toward churches, and yet then you've been out serving your community doing stuff. How have you seen the For Aurora campaign change the way just the people of your city view your church?
I mean, I can just tell just a personal story for me. We obviously moved into the neighborhood, 18 months, 2 years ago, didn't know anyone. So we tried to get to know our neighbors and had them around to our house and just, try to do the good neighbor thing. And a couple across the road, their son and my son have kind of become friends. And the husband, the father of this child, he's never been into a church before in his entire life, not for a funeral, not for a wedding. And so I think initially they were like, who are these strange Christian pastors from South Africa, are they going to try sell us timeshare, whatever? And so, but over time, and I remember I was driving out to work the one day, and I remember the woman across the road was mowing her lawn, and she like tried to stop the car, and I wound down the window, and she said, "Hey, are you the pastor from the church on the hill there?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Oh, we just love what you're doing at the high school with grilled cheese, because we have this thing called grilled cheese." Where we serve about, I mean, it's like 600-700 kids that come from the high school. We literally on the border of a high school. So we just decided to start cooking grilled cheese for the kids. So during their lunch hour, they can come up. And now it's like up to like, I don't know, it's like 900 or 1,000 grilled cheeses every Wednesday. I mean, it's crazy.
Crazy.
And we have this whole team of mainly retired women who are like on this production line. And if you do anything wrong in that production line, let me tell you, they'll put you but she had heard about grilled cheese because her son had gone there, and she was like, I'm not a Christian, but I love what you guys are doing. And then a couple months, about 6 months later, her and her family arrived for the first time in church ever to our Christmas service, and they haven't missed a Sunday since.
Wow.
And so I think that's kind of how, again, it's this endearing yourself to the community, like we're loving without an agenda, and people can smell an agenda a mile away. So I think if you're just doing that, I think it has huge dividends to the church.
Yeah. Hey guys, you may already start having some questions. So if you would go ahead and throw your questions into the chat. When we go to the Q&A portion later, we'll make sure we get those to Tom and Kendal. But go ahead and just put them in there as you're thinking about them, and my team will get those to these guys at the end. So you talked about grilled cheese, and I'd heard of that one before. I love that. That's awesome. What are there any more really particularly effective or memorable kind of FOR initiatives that you've done that maybe another church listening today, watching today, might be able to replicate in their own context, whatever that might look like?
Yeah. I think one of the main things is just we do a lot of stuff with schools, like bringing food to teachers during Teacher Appreciation Week. Actually, kind of a cool story. The homeless liaison for our school district, I ran into her couple months ago, and she said, "Kendal, I just got to tell you, because we've done a lot of stuff together." And she goes, "I just got to tell you, all of my liaisons now, the teachers, the liaisons in the schools that work with the community," she goes, "all of my liaisons told me that they reach out to me after they've already reached out to you guys." Like, so we've kind of developed this reputation, but at the same time, we had 2 schools for almost 10 years. So we have 22 schools now, but we put in a lot of time over a lot of years with just 2 schools who didn't think we were weird, who didn't think we had an agenda, and just kind of trying to prove that, so that now kind of the word has gotten out, and the more the word gets out, the more the word gets out, but I think that trust building has been so important in all of our initiatives. Is we're not trying to take advantage of people. We're not trying to, we're not coming in with an agenda. We want to make this, we truly just want to help our community. And so I think that has been the biggest part of the whole thing is, and that's starting small. I mean, like in my mind, like, sure, what we do some stuff on a pretty big scale, but we started very small, and it was, one school at a time and one event at a time. And, when that marketplace started, it was 60 families, and we didn't do meals and we didn't do anything like that, you know. And so like it's scaled and grown, but there's always a place to kind of start. That's how, you know, do for one what you wish you could do for everyone.
I love
Yeah,
that.
I think that's a part of it is just like, again, like we weren't trying to feed 600 kids at grilled cheese. If 10 had arrived, we would have done 10, you know. And I think it's about starting small, doing for one what you wish you could do for all, and then seeing what God breathes life and wind into, you know, because a lot of this is also beyond our control, and it's not because we did something clever. It's just God providing, you know, opening doors. So I do think starting small is kind of the key.
I love that. Okay, so I hear all these things you guys are doing, and I know your heart and the motivation you're doing it with. But you talked about how even your partners know you don't have an agenda, things like that. So with all that taken consideration, how do you balance being for your community and doing practical things like swimsuits and grilled cheeses without drifting into being just another nonprofit? How do you keep the focus on Jesus and the mission of the church without seeming like you have an agenda? Like how do you see those? You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
How do you do
that's
that?
a good question. Kendall, you want to hit that one? I
Well,
mean,
I
that's
think,
intention, right?
yeah, that's a tension we manage all the time, you know, in that, because and we do, like when we give our Friday backpacks full of food to schools. The week before our Christmas services, we're putting an invitation in there, and the week before our Easter services, we're putting in. So like we're not saying we're not a church and all that sort of thing. Like people know that, but I think it's not what we lead with. And so
Yeah.
then they realize, like, I'm going to get this backpack even if I don't go to that church service, but they know it's here and they know it's available. And so we want to make sure that when they do have a need for spiritual things, or when they want to investigate that more, just like this high school 2 weeks ago, when there is a tragedy or something change, then they know this is a place they're familiar with, you know, we're speaking their language, they know who we are, that sort of a thing.
That's good to hear because I didn't know if you'd be like, oh yeah, don't ever like promote something, you know. So that's
Yeah.
interesting to hear that you do tastefully, naturally work things in like that when it makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
And especially like our marketplace food line, these people are waiting in line. You know, some of them line up hours ahead of time. Not sure why, because we never run out of food. But then our people go door to door and, you know, kind of stick their heads in. Hey, how's things going? Can we pray for you? You know, we have care teams that kind of work that line, and we do almost every sermon series. Like if we've got an invite thing, we're hitting that group up because they know I mean, they're literally coming to our building and waiting in our parking lot. So there's no confusion as to the fact that we're a church and this is why we're doing it. So
Gotcha. All
Yeah.
right, so I know this whole thing isn't just you two guys running around. I know Tom, you just mentioned the assembly line of grilled cheese makers. So what role do other staff and volunteers, what do they play in sustaining the momentum of this? I know, it's got to be a lot, right?
So, I mean, I think that's where, I mean, this team, I'm so grateful for the staff and the team. Yeah, we do have a lot of fun. We don't take ourselves too seriously, but we take the mission seriously. And I feel like, again, this is not a program, this is a culture. So this kind of infiltrates every ministry. So like grilled cheese is actually run by our student ministry. It's not run by our reach out department. It's just their way of exercising the heart for the community. As you know, you've got a high school right next door and you're a student ministry. Why wouldn't you want to do that? And so similarly, kind of every ministry has it. So the ministries have ownership. Each ministry has ownership over FOR Aurora. It kind of saturates everything we do. But I will say, like, and Kendall can talk more, but I think Kendall and Kelvin, who are kind of the champions and the primary drivers of it, they've, I think, over years built just a kind of an army of high capacity volunteers. We're at the point now where, like, for example, Marketplace, if Kendall and Kelvin are not there, it's going to run by itself because we've got 2 or 3 key people they're not volunteers, they're owners. Like they run the ministry. And I think that for me is the key. And of course, again, that takes time. It takes time to build that pipeline of volunteers.
Mhm.
Very cool. So tell me this. I know you guys are out there building personal relationships with nonprofits in your area, and it's all very personal. But then there's also a digital strategy side of this as well. I know I was talking, Tom, you know this. We were talking to a church in Kansas City, And I mentioned you guys, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we follow FOR Aurora on social media." So I know you guys also have a digital footprint. So how has that digital strategy played a role in amplifying this FOR message, beyond just what you're doing inside your building?
Yeah, we have a separate FOR Aurora website, different separate from our church website, and it's really divided into I need help or I want to help. And so people find us who want to help out, they want to volunteer, their business wants to get involved, whatever, or hey, I need help, I need groceries, when can I come? How can I get that? So that's a big forward-facing part of it. This isn't digital, but this is what drives a lot of our digital. We have a box truck and a food truck that we park out on the street like giant billboards. They're wrapped in all of our graphics and everything. So like you can't miss that this is where FOR Aurora happens. And so people search, our social media stuff, our website, that sort of thing. And from Jeff Henderson's book FOR, we really even started doing some of that idea where you go into businesses and just say, hey, could we kind of highlight your business and let our community know about you? We're for you.
Oh yeah.
We're for all these different things. We're also for businesses in our community. Can we highlight you on our social media page? And then they, share us on their social media page. And, so it's kind of like we're trying to help support them, but then they're putting us out there at the same time. And it just continues to grow and just continues to like, it is a momentum thing. Once you get momentum, it just continues to go. And but yeah, that's kind of how we use some of that social and some of that digital.
And I would say from a lead pastor, preacher thing, I'm pretty ruthless about being like storytellers. This is not Matthew 6, this is Matthew 5. So Matthew 6 is like, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. That's around private generosity in your own life. But Matthew 5 is, why would you hide a lampshade under the lamp? Like, let your light shine before men so that they glorify God. So for us, we're ruthless storytellers. Wherever we find a story, out there in the community, or a volunteer who stepped up and done something cool, we just tell those stories all the time. And that generates generosity. It inspires people because, stories are so much more compelling than just, this is our budget and this is what we need. No, this is what your generosity, your faithfulness is actually doing out there in the community. This is why we exist. So wherever you can find those stories, and again, this is not a budget issue. Like, everyone can tell stories about something that God has done, and that inspires more. I mean, so when grilled cheese started growing, we were just telling stories about grilled cheese. So when we needed an actual bigger kind of cooker to do all these sandwiches, one person just said, okay, I'll do that, and bought that grill, because they'd been hearing for months what God was doing in that thing. So I would just say to lead pastors, to communicators, to worship leaders, wherever you can, small group leaders, just tell stories of what God is doing. And it's not boasting on what we're doing, it's boasting what God is doing through us.
Yeah, I love that. No, that's huge, Tom. So I'm sure everybody listening today is like, man, this sounds awesome. I want to do something like this, or I want to continue doing. You've inspired us to go even further, faster than we were already doing in this area. So you guys have been at this for a while. If you were advising another pastor or church leader who wants to launch their own FOR city, for whatever their city is, or something similar with a different name in their area, what are the first one or two baby steps that you'd recommend that they take?
Can I take this one, Kendal?
Yeah.
Louis said us some of these questions before, and so I was like, this is the one that I was kind of wrestling with. And as like a preacher, I want to have 3 points that all start with a P, or then God's in it,
Yeah.
But so I wrote these 4 things down, and I think again this applies to wherever context you're in, whatever country you're in. I think these apply in your context. I think I would say start with listening, not launching, because I think often we are answering questions that the culture or the community is not asking. So we're trying to jump into a need, thinking it's a need, and actually they're like, that's not really the need. Here's my need. So I would say, listen to what is the actual need in your congregation and in the community that your congregation lives, because they're out there Monday to Friday, So and that leads to starting small, picking a problem and focusing on that one problem, and just starting to do whatever you can with that one thing. If that's 5 sandwiches, or if that's one, AA group, whatever it is, like start small. start with listening. And the second one is, I'd say, build trust before you build events. I think the tendency is to be like, oh, I want to start a grilled cheese, or I want to go do marketplace. Like, whereas that kind of grew organically for us out of starting small and listening to what the needs were. So I would say it's going to look different. Your events or programs are going to look different, but the trust is always the same, however you build trust. I said make it personal, not programmatic, because I think, again, it's the personal. People want to know how much you care before before they care how much you know. And then the last one, I say measure faithfulness, not outcomes, because again, we're not really in charge of the outcomes. Like I mean, to be honest, we would still be doing grilled cheese if 20 kids came every week. Like that, we're not doing it because that many kids come. We're just doing it because we feel that's what God has told us to do. The outcome is up to God. And so I would say focus on the faithfulness part of it, less on the outcome. You want to add anything, Kendal?
Dude, you should be a preacher.
Yeah,
he should. Yeah.
ChatGPT. Thanks, ChatGPT, for trying to make it rhyme.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, hey everybody, we are about to transition to the Q&A. We already have a few several great questions actually. If you didn't get yours in yet, throw it in the chat. But before we go to that Q&A, I have one last question for you guys. You know, we talked earlier about, you know, ICN and network of churches around the world that are innovating and collaborating around this idea of designing our churches to engage unchurched people and inspire them to follow Jesus. When it comes to this whole FOR Aurora stuff, how has being a part of ICN and a partner church with ICN help shape or support your FOR Aurora work that you're doing? And why do you think other churches might benefit from being in this kind of network?
Yeah. Well, I know for me, so I'm in a call group with about 12 other people that are kind of in the same sort of role that I am. And it's great because even we all are contextualizing what we're learning, because we're all over the country, we're all in different places. And but it's been so nice to talk with a group of people that kind of understand what I'm trying to do. I understand what they're trying to do, bounce ideas off each other's thoughts, brainstorms, and just, I mean, like a lot of like, I mean, there's certain things where, I mean, nobody in church is thinking about like, how do you best interact with your city council and what do you do? You know, like there's not a lot of people on your staff that are thinking that way, but us outreach people, we're always figuring like, how do I get in with the city? How can I get this meeting with that person? And people that have done it and worked it out, like, it's just great to have that. So for me, that's one of the biggest parts of just being part of ICN is that call group of like-minded people that I get to be a part of.
That's great.
So good.
Tom, do you have anything to think about? Just want to say ditto.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I hope people can understand me with this funny accent of mine. But I see we got some fellow Africans here on the call, so that's good. I would say agree. I honestly think you talk about content, community, all that. I think for me, the community aspect of it is just, you can't really put a price on it. Like, I get to go away once a year with a bunch of other lead pastors at a kind of a getaway, and it's like food for my soul, because you're around people who just get it, who know what it's like to get the angry email and the elder that leaves, and like you don't have to explain it. People just are there that get it in the trenches with you. I mean, even just recently, with some of the political division and all the stuff happening here in the States, and I'm new to this, like. I'm not as American, so I'm not blue or red, because it's so foreign for me. And so, the first thing I did was get on the call with other guys, say, hey, how are you guys handling this? What are you saying this Sunday? We're sharing notes, we're sharing ideas. Okay, that's super helpful. Like, help me understand this, because this is foreign for me. And I think just having that support group in the trenches, you feel supported and you feel encouraged. I just recently lost my dad. Unfortunately, he passed away, and I have to fly back to South Africa now to be there for him. And one of the other pastors in the network is recording a video to show this Sunday, because I'm not going to be able to preach, And so that's someone who said, hey, I got you, And so it's that kind of thing that just, again, you can't put a price on that. I think, and, even if it's not ICN, I would just encourage leaders, leadership is lonely, and you need other people who can come alongside you, who know what it's like to carry the weight of that. And that for me has been the greatest thing about being, and I was part of the network in South Africa and here, and it's been that same sense of community that I've loved.
Dude, thank you so much. That's helpful, guys. So with that said, we do have several questions from the people on the webinar today. You guys ready to crack your knuckles and dive into some of these?
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah.
Kendall's answering all the questions.
Okay, it's all you, Kendall. This is all going to you. Tom's gonna go get a cortado while you're.
Right, right. Let's go.
I love it. All right, so this first question comes from Danielle, and she says, "How were you able to identify the hidden needs within your community, like the food insecurity in an affluent area, that kind of stuff?" So, how were you guys able to identify that stuff?
Yeah, I think some of it was a trial and error type of thing where, you try some typical things and, oh, this one really seems to get some traction, this one not so much. And so then we cut off the ones that aren't getting as much traction. So I think there's a little bit of trial and error. The other thing I did for quite a while was just attending city council meetings and just couple times a quarter, slip in on a Monday night and just listen to the kind of when it's open speaking time and people get whatever they want to say to the city council. It's quite entertaining sometimes, but sometimes you get just really great nuggets about what are people caring about, what are they seeing as the needs around them and that sort of thing. So I think there's a number of ways, but I do think some of it is trial and error and just asking a lot of questions.
That's great. This is another good question from Nan and Beth, and they both want to know what are the details of how all of this is funded? Like, I guess, is this like just out of your operating budgets? Is there some other donor or something? And they kind of also know how has it grown over time? They're like it's hard to know where to start. So like, what did it first look like, and maybe how does it look now, kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, when we first started, we did set some of our general operating fund budget aside for some of these FOR Aurora initiatives and to start that first, service week that we did. And then we actually during COVID, we got a couple of grants from our county, which I mean, churches and governments don't work together, but they were handing out grants. So that gave us a bit of a boost, helped us buy some trucks and stuff like that. And then really it's just kind of grown, people kind of knowing we've had a couple different times where we've kind of highlighted something like our grilled cheese, it jumped massively one year. And so the money that our youth ministries had budgeted wasn't going to cover the rest of the year. And so we went to the congregation. It was a weekend. I happened to be preaching and I said, "Hey, I need 10 people to give $1,000 to make up the shortfall of $10,000 is where we see this over the coming school year." And I think we made $37,000 that day. People just
Wow.
to that. So it's making people aware, but then also what has happened is people have started giving ongoing to FOR Aurora. We have a separate spot that people can give. We have some businesses in our community that we've built relationships with that they give now, and we try to highlight and them as much as possible on our website and different places. So it's really kind of grown, and then and because in the our growth has happened because of that funding growth. So, I mean, we wouldn't be where we were today if the money wasn't there, obviously. So,
Right.
we were doing things small, and when we didn't have much money. And now, basically, FOR Aurora is kind of self-sufficient. Our salaries are still paid out of our general operating expenses, but we don't really have any line items connected back to EHills. We are one entity. We're not separate or anything, but we get most of our operating expenses through giving directly to FOR Aurora.
What I will say, like my counterbalance to that from the lead pastor role is that we've kind of tried to minimize where people are like wanting to direct their money to a certain thing, because reality is if the tide rises for the church, then FOR Aurora wins. And so when we tell stories of FOR Aurora, we're saying, hey, when you give to EHills, you're giving to things like this, you're enabling this to happen. And so also because you don't want people kind of shift, because it's obviously much sexier to give to grilled cheese than it is to pay the water and lights at the church, So and we teach into that, like, hey, this is how we believe in the tithe and the principle of percentage priority giving, and then over and above, here's what that generosity looks like. And so people have caught that. But I do think that is a tension always to manage, because you don't want this directed funding all the time. And so that's helped.
Okay, good. That's helpful. That makes sense. So, this question is from Rebecca, and this is a pretty specific question, so get ready. Okay,
Okay.
so how would this work? I guess this meaning the FOR concept. How would this work in a community of affluent retirees in a resort area? Like she's saying we need to be better known in their neighborhood. So like how if you had to transition to that, I know you said Tom, you were like initially I didn't even think this, in this affluent area there was any need. Well, this is
Mhm.
a affluent retiree resort area. How would you go about starting down that road if you were in Rebecca's shoes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be. I would start with like Kendall said. Sitting in the council meeting is about listening. And so when I say start with listening, not launching, like I would listen to the congregation and say, hey, like what are some of the needs that you're seeing in your community, in your retirement community? Because I guarantee you there are needs there. Like, is loneliness the need? Like,
Uh,
is that the like primary like cry of the community's heart? Because hey, we can solve that. We can have fun nights out. We can, so I would say start with trying to listen. I mean, even I'm preaching coming up on, the guy on the mat at the pool of Bethesda, and I was just struck by like Jesus' question where he says, "Do you want to get well?" I'm like, that's kind of a weird question because like the dude's lying there for 38 years. Like, of course I want to get well, but I think Jesus is asking like a deeper question, like, what do you want to get well? Like I can
yeah.
see the need of the obvious one, but there's other needs that are lurking there as well. And so I would say, like, what does it look like to dig a little deeper and say, what are the needs of your community? And it doesn't necessarily have to be, financial or monetary or, maybe food insecurity is not a thing there, but maybe it's loneliness or maybe it's, there's no third spaces for people to hang out in, and a church can be a third space that provides that kind of connection. Maybe it's an addiction problem, so hey, can we partner with you know these AA or NA groups and something like that? I just think I would ask follow-up questions, I guess.
That's
Yeah, I
helpful.
think too. I think too the in that situation, maybe there's not an issue in your immediate community, but maybe some of those people who, yeah, they need friends, they want community, maybe you get them together and start thinking about, hey, how can we bless this community next to us? And like one of the things that has been huge for us is our this retired group of people. They make marketplace happen. They make grilled cheese happen because both of those things happen kind of during the day. And so people that are working regular 9 to 5 jobs, they're not available during that time. So these retirees, and it has become such a community for them. I mean, they're inviting their friends to come and work on the grilled cheese production line, and this is these people's first step into EHills. So I think
Mm.
sometimes it's hey, maybe there's a need for community, and then as a result, could we actually do something for another group of people? Or um, we have a group of stitch and serve ladies at our church. They love to get together and sew and crochet, and so they make all of our stuff for. They make pajamas for our Christmas store. They make stuff for our partner ministry we work with in Zambia. They make quilts and blankets for nursing homes. So like they're coming together, and we're using what they're doing in their community to bless other people in a four-way as well.
I love that. That's a great way to think about it because it's not necessarily maybe this affluent group of retirees in this resort community, not necessarily that they have needs in the way you would think about it, but their need is to have a platform, an avenue to give of their time and
Other
serve other
people.
people and meet needs. They just need a way to do it, and you're providing
Correct.
that way for them to do that. Yeah, that's awesome. Good. Okay, I know Kendall, you talked about the city council meetings, and sitting in those. This person is asking, have you connected with any local government officials as a part of this effort? And if so, how has that gone? How have you been received? So do you have anything else to add about the city councils, or have you connected with mayor or any other things to do with the local government?
Yeah. So yeah, the mayors, they always show up right around election time and want to hear how that
Funny,
happens.
funny.
It's funny how
This
that
is
happens.
let me just tell you from a South African perspective. I don't. When you guys said you got money from a grant, as you say, I was like, "What are you talking about?" Because that is not happening in South Africa.
Yeah. I think it's been sometimes it's helpful. We have a couple people on the city council that come to our church. Those are always pretty easy go-tos. But our actual person who's over our area of our church here, you know, I remember the first time I met with her and I was like, hey, like I cornered her at a town hall. I found out where her town hall was going to be, and I kind of like waited until everyone left, and I was like, okay, here's my chance. And she was like, you know, we don't have a lot of needs in our area. And I was like, I'm offering you like money, lots of volunteers, like you
Yeah.
got to think of something, you know. And like later on, like, but I think I kind of caught her off guard. So like, I would love for you to think about that, and I'll be back in touch and that sort of thing. But so it, you know, and I think there's also always a trust thing, you know. She didn't know me at the time, and so yeah, it takes a while to build that trust. But usually it's been, hey, a follow up or that sort of thing. I mean, one time we made beanies that were FOR Aurora branded, and they were really nice. I just put one in a envelope for every member on city council and just delivered them to their offices. It was like, here you go. You know, if you ever need anything, call me. And I think one or two people reached out to me. Everybody else never heard from. You know, so
Yeah.
it's
I think I've seen some of those beanies in the local thrift store down the road here.
exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
I do also think something that's kind of struck me lately is that I met someone who was in our church recently, and you know, I've been here for almost 2 years, and this is the first time I met her. And she's hugely involved in like the homelessness situation in our city, and she sits on this council, and I never even knew that. And so I think also part of it is like what I guarantee there's probably people in your church that are passionate about something or that are involved in something. And that is your church being involved because the church is the people. It's not like, you know, EHills has to officially be involved in this ministry. It's like, but if people in your church are doing that, then in some ways that you're part of that. And I think tell those stories as well. And that inspires people to go out and do what they're passionate about in the community, making a difference. And we don't have to get the credit. Like we're not trying to get any credit on this. This is about what God is doing. So, yeah.
And I would
Very
say,
helpful.
you know, carefully, be careful what you wish for, but you could ask your congregation, like, what are you guys doing? Where are you involved? What are you passionate about? We're trying to figure out some stuff as a church that we want to be involved in. Tell us what you're involved in. Now, you're going to end up with all kinds of crazy, but I think that's a great place to start where people might give you like, oh, maybe we don't even know this is happening, and they're off doing this thing, you know, with a nonprofit or with a partner ministry or that sort of thing, and that we can jump in with.
That's good. That actually is a good lead in for the last question that I'm going to ask you guys. But before we get question, I want to do a quick commercial here for everybody for our webinar that we have coming up next month as we continue through this series through our ICN network distinctives. So like this month is for our community. Next month, we're going to be talking about healthy leadership. And so we're going to be doing a webinar next month in November called 5 Staff Culture Mistakes That Could Derail Your Mission. And this is huge. Most time we're thinking about all these other kinds of things to do with our mission, and we totally forget about what's going on with staff culture. And some of that, sometimes that stuff could just completely pull us off of where we're headed. So that's going to be a great webinar. Our special guest on that webinar is Tim Cooper, who works for the Table Group. He's a principal consultant for the Table Group. If you ever heard of Patrick Lencioni, that's his organization. And so this is going to be a great webinar about staff culture, healthy leadership, November 19th, 2 p.m. Eastern. So I know you guys are on Mountain, so make sure you realize it's 2 p.m. Eastern. It'll be right at your lunchtime there. You guys can have a little lunch and learn. Yeah, so everybody on the webinar today, make sure you mark that one on your calendar. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get to this last question. We were talking about these different, asking our congregation about different things they're into and things like that. This is a great question this person asked. They asked, how did you decide who to partner with? Like with most, communities, there's endless needs. How do you focus on these things? Obviously, you're probably part of that is you're vetting different nonprofits. So you probably had to say no to some people for some reason. Like, what made you choose to partner with this organization and not that one? How do you do that? Voila, just kind of throw that out there.
Yeah. We I would love to say we have like this, formulaic template laid out there, but it's way more organic than that. And I think sometimes it's what are the needs of that organization? Can we actually help meet those needs? If an organization is super small and they need hundreds of thousands of dollars to get over, like that's probably not going to be us. We're going to throw some money at you and it's not really even going to help. So but there's some places where we have a church that we partner with in the inner city here, and the amount of stuff they do with the volunteers they have and the money that we give to them, I mean, it is a unbelievable return on our investment. So
Okay.
some of that is, does this organization need a bunch of volunteers? We can help do that. Like, we want to be a part of that. We really don't need any volunteers, we just want your money. Okay, well, we might be less inclined to do that because we're trying to get our people involved in serving their community as well. So it just kind of depends, and I think it's probably going to be on what your focus is. There's a lot of churches that, especially in the ICN network, run a Be Rich program where they raise a bunch of funds and give those funds to partner organizations. That's going to be a lot different than putting a bunch of volunteers into an organization and some funding and that sort of thing. So I think it kind of depends on what your goals are. But we've tried to figure out, what does that organization need, and are we able to make a meaningful impact there?
Yeah. And I think a helpful theological kind of framework is, I'm sure many of you have read the book, but there's that book, When Helping Hurts. Again, coming from an African context, like, Africa doesn't need more aid, it needs more trade, and so sometimes, billions of dollars have been spent to Africa in aid. And sometimes you need that. You need, give a man a fish because they're starving and it's child-headed household, all that. But then there has to be another layer of, how do you teach someone to fish? And then even another layer of, well, how do we figure out who's poisoning the pond? And because there are systemic structures in place that keep people in cycles of poverty. So we try to do kind of all three of those levels. So we're not just going to hand out food and create this dependency thing. We want to get involved in people's lives and say, why is it that you keep lining up here? Because we want to get to the point where you don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And so I think whenever we're vetting organizations, certainly in my mind, are these organizations holistic in their approach? Are they talking about spiritual, emotional, and physical poverty, not just one? And do they have the results to show that they're actually moving people out of these systemic or cyclical patterns, as opposed to just creating this ongoing problem? So I think When Helping Hurts is a really helpful framework for that.
Very good. All that's so helpful. Guys, thank you so much for just taking this time out of your busy schedules to jump on here. Tom, taking some time away from your cortado and your soda water to join us on the webinar today. Yeah, this has been so helpful. I think you guys just knocked it out of the park when it comes to just honesty, being real, like we talked about, just giving practical examples, but also helping everybody understand the true heart behind it and the culture behind it as well. It's not a scheme. It's something that you guys are embodying as you're reflecting Jesus to your community. So that's awesome. Thank you guys for doing that. Thanks for being here. Everybody on the webinar, thank you for joining us today. If you guys need anything at all, let us know. We'd love to help you go further, faster in this area and any other area that we mentioned today. And with that said, have a great day. We'll see you guys next time. See you in November.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Bye, guys. See ya.